day, beautiful people. This is Natalie Silva with Life Treasures and Golden Moments, where I share with you true stories of miracles and stories of inspiration. Welcome back. I hope everybody's had a good month out there in the month of October. It is now November the 1st, and we're getting closer to the holidays. In fact, last night we had some snow even, which is unusual for October here. But it's warming up again, so hopefully we'll have a little bit more fallish weather before that big winter snow moves in and keeps us cold during the season. Anyhow, this is the month of November, and I would like to dedicate this month's podcast to our veterans out there who serve us and protect us in our country. November the 11th, 2019, is Veterans Day, a day to honor our veterans for all military personnel, past and present, who have served our country, and to show our gratitude to them for what they've done for us to protect us. And that's what the day is all about. Sometimes people get confused as to Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but I want to share a little bit about the difference. In 1918, I believe, I'm going by memory here, the World War I ended with the signing of the Armistice Agreement. 1 year later, I believe it was President Woodrow Wilson signed a proclamation commemorating November 11th as Armistice Day. And each year after that, Americans would celebrate the end of the war to end all wars. And in 1938, it was named a national holiday. But soon after, World War broke out in Europe and World War II began. So, because World War I was not the end all wars, the lawmakers believed that veterans from World War II and the Korean War also deserved a day of remembrance. So in 1954, President Eisenhower signed a bill that changed the name of Armistice Day to Veterans Day. A lot has changed over the past 100 years since the World War I and the signing of the Armistice Agreement. But through the past century, the purpose of Veterans Day has remained the same: to say thank you to all men and women who have served to protect and defend the United States of America. Not too long ago, I also read another article that was written by a wife of a veteran who had just retired after 31 years of service. And she had mentioned how she felt about Veterans Day, and it was important to show our gratitude and appreciation to the men and the women who have served our country. In her article, she also mentioned the Vietnam War and our veterans of that time, and how it was a rough time back in those days because they did not get the respect and the gratitude that they should have. So she was very pleased, and all of us are very pleased now that they are at last recognized and shown a little bit more gratitude and thankfulness for the service that they gave our country. And we feel blessed to have them also, and say thank you to all our veterans everywhere that serve and protect this beautiful, wonderful country that we live in. I know that we do have problems, but we all have to be more mindful of each other and show our gratitude and respect and consideration, because it's hard out there some days. So in any event, I've got these stories today I want to share with you that are very heart-touching, a little bit tearful, that I think you will really enjoy. The first story I want to share with you today is called A Soldier, and the author is Caleb Broke. An elderly man with a young child approaches a fence. All around them are unfamiliar faces stricken with fear, heartache, and tears. The American flag bellows in the wind like a giant blanket covering the grief-stricken. He gently squeezes his granddaughter's hand, and she hugs him closely. "Grandpa," a tiny voice calls out, "why is Daddy leaving?" The grandfather looks at his precious granddaughter for a moment with tears welling up. He quickly turns to his son, now boarding a plane, and for a brief moment the father and son exchange a look that only they know and they understand. The son, a soldier, gives one last glance to his beloved daughter before turning and loading on the plane with the others who are Vietnam bound. "Wave to Daddy, little one," the grandfather says. As if she had forgotten her question, she begins to wave with all she could, as though those waves of what would bring her daddy home. They watch with awe as the plane left the runway. So many doubts ran through the grandfather's mind, he didn't dare express himself while the child was in his presence. They slowly walk to the car as the day's events sink into their hearts. The elderly man thought long and hard about the granddaughter's question, pondering what he could possibly say to ease the child's mind. Her voice was such a large question, so ringing in his ears, it broke his heart and it touched his soul. As they pulled out of the airport, traffic came to a halt. The busy street that once held cars, now people marching up and down, carrying signs filled with the words of hate towards the soldiers that they had just left. They screamed of peace, misjustice, and abuse. The little girl looked at her grandfather in confusion. He could only smile at her, his heart heavy with the burden that now lied ahead. Soon the demonstration came to an end and the traffic began to flow again. As they drove down the busy streets, the grandfather looked at the city as if truly seeing it for the first time. He saw beggars on the streets, chasing pedestrians down, and young boys running through alleyways instead of sitting in a classroom. He heard sirens screaming in the distance, and people yelling profanity at their neighbors. "Thief! Baby killers! Get out of my way!" came from all directions, humming in his ears and in hers. Then finally came to their driveway. He slowly shut the car door and took his granddaughter's hand. He looked off into the sky as it began to darken. They went inside. The house was dark and musty. He turned the TV on and the news report began. This evening, a suspect was arrested for the shooting and murder of a local shop owner. Quickly, the grandfather turned the TV off. He'd had enough. He called to his granddaughter to come to sit by him. Lightly touching her hair, he breathed a heavy sigh and began speaking to her. "My dear little one, you asked me earlier why it was your daddy had to go away. Although it breaks our hearts to see him leave, you have to believe that he has a greater purpose. Daddy left so that those people marching the streets may do so. He fights for their freedom to say what it is that they feel. Even though they hate him, he loves them very much. Daddy left so the man on the corner can live as he chooses. Daddy fights for that man's freedom to sit on the street corner. And though your daddy's valor leaves a bitter taste in the man's mouth, he loves him that much. Daddy left so that the children who run in the alleyway and skip school may have the freedom to go to school and learn, even though those children don't understand what sacrifices Daddy makes. He loves them very much. Daddy left so that men may bear arms without persecution or prejudice, even though one day Daddy may be at the end of a barrel. He loves them that much. Your daddy left for the love of freedom, to give all that choice, even if it's taking away his own freedom. So, little one, be proud of your daddy and believe in what he believes in, no matter what others may say about what daddy is doing today. One day you will understand the choices your daddy makes. So till then, never forget the things I have told you today, and always remember that he loves you that much. The little girl was confused. She trusted her grandfather, though, and saw the tears that welled in his eyes. She knew in her heart he meant what he was saying. So she kissed him on the forehead and gave him a big hug and said, "I won't forget, Grandpa." 2 years later, the little girl lost her daddy. She never got to ask her daddy about what her grandpa had taught her and what freedom had meant to him. She never got the chance to hold his hand or dance for him in the school play. She didn't get to hear him laugh at her birthday party or have him kiss her good night. She carried the image of the fateful goodbye in the words of her grandfather. "Parade, rest," boomed the voice of the sergeant. As they were being briefed, the young soldier thought back to the day her daddy had boarded that plane. Fear, pride, and sorrow began to overwhelm her. She could still see her daddy's eyes as he disappeared into the dark. Her heart was racing as the company begins to load their things. She looked off into the distance at the fence, the same fence where so many years ago her and her grandfather had stood. Slowly a tear fell as a faded image of her grandfather stood there, almost as though he had never left. She smiled at the waving image. She exclaimed under her breath to the ghost, "I never forgot, Grandpa. I never forgot." This next story was authored by Elizabeth Hasse, and the title of the story is called A Soldier's Letter of Hope. "Mom," my 10-year-old daughter Annie shouted as she burst through the front door after school that fall afternoon nearly 3 years ago. "I just got a letter from a soldier." Annie's teacher had given them a project. Write a letter to a U.S. serviceman or a woman in Iraq. Annie had worked hard on a big picture of a red, white, and blue cat on the bottom of the page. She'd written, "Be safe and thank you." I'd cautioned Annie not to get her hopes up too much. "There are a lot of soldiers out there," I told her, "and they're very busy. I'm sure they'll appreciate hearing from you, but you might not get an answer from them." "Oh, that's okay, Mom," Annie said. "It was fun making the picture." Now Annie pulled the letter from her school bag and read it to me. "Hi, my name is Scott Montgomery. I'm a sergeant in the South Carolina Army National Guard, currently stationed in Kuwait. 2 weeks ago in Iraq, on a mission just north of Baghdad, my truck was hit by a bomb. A piece of shrapnel struck me in the arm, and I had to be rushed to the hospital. I had 2 operations and was feeling pretty sad. While I was recuperating, someone gave me an envelope addressed to a U.S. soldier. I found a beautiful handmade card from you. It brought a big smile to my face to know that a young girl in Indiana took the time to wish good luck to someone she doesn't even know. Thank you, Annie. You really brightened the soldier's day. I hope you get a chance to write back. Take care, Scott." "This is so cool," Annie said. She raced upstairs to show the letter to her sisters, while the words she just read echoed in my head. Kuwait, Baghdad, trucks, bombs, shrapnel. These kinds of words I read every day in the paper along with another one, casualties. I instantly liked the young man who had been thoughtful enough to write back to Annie, to make her feel so special, but to be honest, I was worried. My daughter was a sweet little 4th grader. Her world was small and I hoped protected. Scott was a man in the middle of a war where people were getting maimed and killed, a conflict that adults argued about every day on TV, the radio, even in our own church parking lot. The ugly realities of war were nearly everywhere. Did I really need to expose my 10-year-old daughter to them? Wouldn't the world find her soon enough? "She's going to grow up fast enough as it is," I said to my husband, Jim, that night. "War is the most horrible thing in the world. Does she have to learn about it now when she doesn't even know that Santa's not real?" "Look," said Jim, "we're the ones who taught the girls that we need to support the troops over there. Annie's just putting that idea into action. She can learn from this. It is scary, true, but you're never too young to do the right thing." The next day, after school, Annie showed me a letter she'd written to Scott. It was short, but I could see the work she'd put into every careful lettered word. "Dear Scott, I'm a 4th grader. I'm in gymnastics 12 hours a week. I like SpongeBob and using my dad's computer to play Office. Annie." "That's nice," I told her, and she sent the letter off. Starting almost immediately, the first thing Annie did when she got home from school or gymnastics class was to check the mailbox. 3 weeks passed. I figured Scott wasn't going to write back. "Don't feel bad," I told Annie one afternoon following another fruitless check of the mailbox. "Scott's a soldier. He's got all kinds of things to think about over there. Writing you a letter right now might not be so easy for him. I know, Mom, Annie said, her voice upbeat as usual, but I can still think he's going to write back. I can hope. A month flew by, and I hoped Annie had moved on. Then one day a package with a military return address showed up. Inside was a bracelet made of rope, a small stuffed camel, and another handwritten note from Scott. Every guy in my unit wears a bracelet like this one, enclosed, it read. Annie immediately wrapped it around her tiny wrist. It was a perfect fit. She went to bed that night with it on, and the camel tucked in beside her. I peeked in on her later. Her face, bathed in the soft pink glow of her half-moon nightlight, was peaceful almost beyond imagining, so opposite of the way our world was now. How would she react if Scott or someone in his unit got hurt or worse? I went to bed more worried than ever. Christmas is only a month away, Annie said the next morning at breakfast. Let's send Scott a holiday goodie package. We can put cookies in it, the frosted cutout kind, and Chex Mix. You can't have Christmas without Chex Mix. Christmas in Iraq. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine it. Broiling heat, constant danger, and homesickness. I opened my eyes and saw Annie staring at me, a big eager grin on her face. I looked at the innocent, completely trusting face and decided I had to say something more than I had so far. War isn't nice, honey. This isn't just another fun school. Annie fixed me with one of those looks she gives me from time to time, a look that basically says, Mom, how can you be so dumb? I know, Mom, she said, and that's why I wanted to write the letter. That's why I put Scott and the soldiers in my prayers every night. Now, I was the one being naive. I should have known Annie had thought this through, and that there was no hiding the world from her, and certainly there was no holding back her prayers. And how could she pray if she didn't know what she was praying for? Christmas in Kuwait, I said to Annie. We should put some practical things in the package, too. Things he can use every day, like gum and lip balm. He can't drive down to the Target like we can. Annie nodded vigorously as if the fact had already occurred to her. By the time we'd gotten everything packed into Scott's holiday package and sent it off, I was as excited for Scott to get it as Annie was. That night I added Annie's soldier to my own prayers. Lord, I guess Scott's a part of our family now. Please keep him safe. The holidays came and went, no word from Scott. I kept my eye on the mailbox. I was as bad as Annie. Worse, probably. Finally, a box arrived, a big box. Inside was an American flag. With a mix of awe and excitement, Annie and I spread it across the dining room table. It was covered with written messages from everyone in Scott's unit, like a page from a high school yearbook. Dear Annie, Scott's letter read, We flew this American flag in Iraq and Kuwait. As you can see, all the soldiers on my team have signed it for you. They know all about you, and it is our way of saying thank you for your support. You aren't really supposed to write on the American flag, but we made an exception. I hope you like it. Take care. God bless. Scott. I turned my head away. Wars make us cry, for the right reasons, too. That spring, Annie developed an injury to her back due to a gymnastics class. Her flexibility caused her to develop a hairline crack on one of her vertebrae. This meant limited activities for her, and she needed to wear a back brace for several months. She told Scott all about it in a letter. Dear Scott, I had to quit gymnastics. I hurt my back. I have a brace that I wear, and I have to do it. Every night I have to do therapy. Oh, ugh. Scott wrote back in an envelope covered with some of the SpongeBob stickers Annie had sent to him. Dear Annie, how are you doing? Is your back still bothering you? I hope by now it's all better. Take it easy and be patient. I know you're upset about not being able to do gymnastics right now. Try not to get too upset. Remember, God has a plan in mind for you. When I got wounded back in October, I was pretty upset about it. I wondered why that happened to me. I know that it happened so I could get your letter and we could become friends. Your friend Scott. See, Mom? Annie whispered after we read the letter. It's all a part of God's plan. I couldn't say anything. I pulled her close to me, kissed the top of her head, and breathed in her little girl smell. Sometimes moms forget that there are even bigger plans than their own and how fast children grow up. In the fall of 2005, Annie's friend Sergeant Scott Montgomery came home to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, to resume duty as a police patrolman, the job he held before shipping out to Iraq. He invited our family down in February of 2006 to meet him face to face. We decided to meet Scott and his fiancée down at the beach. Annie hesitated at first, feeling a little shy, then threw her arms around Scott like she'd known him her whole life. So did I. It was so good to see him and see that all his wounds were healed. We had dinner with Scott and his fiancée. Scott had arranged for us to attend a tribute to our armed forces at the Alabama Theater the next day. He greeted us at the auditorium and showed us to our seats. Just to let you know, he whispered in my ear, I have a little surprise to give Annie, so I'll be asking her to step up to the stage with me when the time comes. When the announcer called Scott up, he walked nervously to the stage. After the applause, Scott called to Annie, Annie, get up here. I'm not doing this all by myself. This young lady was always there for me when I was in Iraq, he told the audience. She deserves to share this award. The room broke into applause as Scott handed a plaque and a bronze eagle to Annie. Someone snapped a picture. Annie, while you're up here, Scott continued, there's one more thing I'd like to give to you. Scott reached into his pocket and pulled something out. His Purple Heart, the award wounded soldiers are given by their country. Annie's eyes widened as Scott pinned his Purple Heart on her jacket. The whole house erupted in applause. Scott's fiancée gave me a hug. Annie made her way back to her seat, the plaque and eagle in her hands, the medal pinned proudly to her, an impossibly huge grin on her face. Mom, can you believe how cool this is? She said. It's pretty cool, all right, I said, putting my arms around my daughter. And so are you. Wow, what beautiful stories today. Thank you to our authors for sharing them with us. It gives us all food for thought about our circumstances and about what we do in the world every day. I hope we all remember to show appreciation and love and respect for others, which will help make this world a better place for everyone. In closing today, I want to again say Happy Veterans Day to all you wonderful veterans out there, and thank you so much for all of your service. We appreciate and love you. And also in closing today, I found another something I want to share with you, written by an author who is unknown, and it's called The Color of Friendship. I thought you might enjoy this. So until next time, you all take care and have happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, and happy month of November. So take care and God bless. This is Natalie Silva, and this is called The Color of Friendship. Once upon a time, the colors of the world started to quarrel. All claimed that they were the best, the most important, the most useful, the favorite. Green said, clearly, I am the most important. I'm the sign of life and of hope. I was chosen for grass, trees, and leaves. Without me, all the animals would die. Look over the countryside and you will see that I am in the majority. Blue interrupted, excuse me, you only think about the earth, but consider the sky and the sea. It is the water that is the basis of life, and drawn up by the clouds from the deep sea. The sky gives space and peace and serenity. Without my peace, you would all be nothing. Yellow chuckled. You are all so serious. I bring laughter, gaiety, and warmth into the world. The sun is yellow, the moon is yellow, the stars are yellow. Every time you look at a sunflower, the whole world starts to smile. Without me, the world would not be any fun. Orange started next to blow her trumpet. Excuse me, I'm the color of health and strength. I may be scarce, but I am precious, for I serve the needs of human life. I carry the most important vitamins. Think of carrots, pumpkins, oranges, mangoes, and papayas. I don't hang around all the time, but when I fill the sky at sunrise or sunset, my beauty is so striking that no one gives another thought to any of you. Well, then Red could stand it no longer, and he shouted out, I'm the ruler of all of you. I am blood, life's blood. I'm the color of danger and of bravery. I'm willing to fight for a cause. I bring fire into the blood. Without me, the earth would be as empty as the moon. I am the color of passion and of love, the red rose, the poinsettia, and the poppy. Purple rose up to his full height. He was very tall and spoke with great pomp. I am the color of royalty and power. Kings, chiefs, and bishops have always chosen me, for I am the sign of authority and wisdom. People do not question me. They listen and obey. Finally, Indigo spoke, much more quietly than all the others, but with just as much determination. Think of me. I am the color of silence. You hardly notice me, but without me, you all become superficial. I represent thought and reflection, twilight and deep water. You need me for balance and contrast, for prayer and for inner peace. And so the colors went on boasting, each convinced of his or own superiority. Their quarreling became louder and louder. Suddenly there was a startling flash of bright lightning, thunder rolled and boomed. Rain started to pour down relentlessly. The colors crouched down in fear, drawing close to one another for comfort. In the midst of the clamor, Rain began to speak. You foolish colors, fighting amongst yourselves, each trying to dominate the rest. Don't you know that you were each made for a special purpose? Unique and different. Join hands with one another and come to me. Doing as they were told, the colors united and joined hands. The rain continued. From now on, when it rains, each of you will stretch across the sky in a great bow of color as a reminder that you can all live in peace. The rainbow is a sign of hope for tomorrow. And so whenever a good rain washes the world and a rainbow appears in the sky, let us remember to appreciate one another. Again, this is Natalie Silver with Life Treasures and Golden Moments. And until next time, take care and may God bless.
From a distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains wide. From a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagle takes to fly. From a distance, they are
let there be peace on earth. God bless you all. Have a wonderful spring, and thank you for letting us be here with you today. Thank you.